Reed Riggs. I'm going to ramble on just whatever comes to mind about my classroom teaching and anything connected with that. Things are going quite well. It's February 28th, 2024. I feel like most of my classes, I think most of my students across all four of my classes, 9, 10, 11, and 12 grade, are on track to do okay on their DP exams or whatever year they take them. And my bigger goal, which is to have them be lifelong learners of language, really lifelong users. And those two go together. At my stage, I started learning Chinese Mandarin when I was 18 years old in college. And when people ask me, how long have you been learning Chinese? Learning is a fair question. I still learn new words here and there, new Changi idioms. But I stopped intentionally studying probably into my 6th or 7th year, to 4 years in college, including a study abroad. And then I was in China for 7 years, but I think the first 2 to 3 I was buying textbooks and still trying to study and talk to people for the intention of learning, really kind of as a study. Maybe then it transitioned more into just daily usage, and so the learning continued through that, but not as a kind of rote or organized type of study, type of learning process. So that's what I hope for my students. I think it was many years ago, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I don't know how long ago, that I started to give up on the idea of when you go to the country, when you're in China like I was, you're going to need to be able to say this accurately or to understand when people say this to you. That's an idealization that statistically doesn't make any sense. I've known very few Chinese language students from my own classroom days, from my own student days when I was a student, through all the students I've ever taught. It's extremely rare that any ever actually go to a Chinese-speaking country or place, and that could include, like when I was at BYU, I had students who would do missionary stays in Toronto, Chinese-speaking community, and Texas, and they come back very, very proficiently fluent sounding in their speaking. It was impressive. They were just speaking Chinese pretty much every day during that time, even though it was in Canada or the United States. So those count as well. Again, not even that what most of my students end up doing. Maybe at BYU more would have, but not for my current students. Maybe a quick family trip. They'll be speaking English most of the time with their family. So I got to readjust my goals. That one of the best goals is just the immediate. Who are we right now? What are we doing right now? What are we going to need tomorrow? What are we going to be doing the rest of this semester? To make goals very local. So that's one fix to the question of goals. And another is locally, what might they do in our local Chinatown or our local Chinese restaurant, and to try to make that as concrete and real as possible. I'm leading an I-term where I'm taking students to the Legend Chinese restaurant where it's dim sum and they speak Cantonese there. They mostly do speak Mandarin too because of their clientele, I'm guessing. Then we've got Chengdu Taste, which is Mandarin. They speak standard Mandarin there, and whatever Sichuan dialects and accents. But they're more likely to be able to use Mandarin there. So restaurants around town, that's actually really practical. So that's a good kind of goal in my idealized needs analysis. It's not a real needs analysis, but it's one that I've made up in my head based on observations around town. And also hearing students. Students will sometimes come to me and say, last year I went to this place over the weekend, and kind of add that to my mental list of places the Chinese can be used for my actual students. Another one is online. I have a few students. So 2 of my seniors have mentioned making friends online, one through video games, playing video games online, and people Chinese-speaking people, interacting with them, and so they've suddenly found it useful. And another just made a kind of an online friend and just chats with her friend. So online space is another good place to have goals. But my point is that the way I'm seeing them engage with texts when we're reading in class looks more like the kind of way they need to engage with reading and listening in whatever variety of contexts outside of class. And so that's what's giving me hope, that they are keeping track of discourse meaning. They're saying, wait, if they said that already, then why are they saying this now? So that kind of attention to coherence, attention to the topic development or the bigger meaning that's being expressed through language. And to get us here, a lot of it is taking a lot of explicit mentions of meaning from me, where I'd say, okay, if they said this before, what do you think this means in this context? Or they'd say, I thought this word meant this other meaning, and I'd say, okay, but in this context, what do you think it means here? Yes, okay, good guesses. Okay, I'll tell you what the meaning is. But I think that kind of training has been instrumental in getting them to think the right way, the useful way, to pay attention to meaning. Yes, attention to word meaning, but also attention to discourse meaning. What information has the text given us so far, so that we can make sense of the text that's coming up next. And so make predictions about language, predictions about words. All of that's going to just all be one complex system. And because I'm seeing that now, even in some of my most challenging students, it's giving me hope that they'll take those same discourse attentive skills, discourse attention into the rest of their lives. So that's my little share. Thank you for listening.